Welcome everyone to Byte.Wave. As usual, this is Nate and
Matt.
and we're here bringing you more of the great bits of technology.
Ooh, technology. All right. So today on the list, Nate, I believe you want to talk about Android and iOS.
Yeah, let's talk about Android and iOS, and then we'll even throw a little bit of Chrome OS in there as well.
Ooh, Chrome OS. Okay. All right. Absolutely. So, you know, we all know of the iPhone and Android phones, and I think in this topic here, we want to really cover the differences and the pros and cons to both. And also Chrome OS. We'll talk a little bit about that. But starting off here, Nate, you want to talk about some Android stuff?
Yeah, we can talk about Android.
Okay. What do you think about Android?
So Android is Google's answer to a mobile operating system. And when I say mobile operating system, I mean tablets, phones, things of that nature are going to run Android's operating system. So they've had several different variations of the Android operating system. It kind of started with alpha, beta, and then they started moving into this kind of like treat or food naming scheme, starting with Cupcake. And then they went from Cupcake to Donut, Eclair. I don't think a lot of people were too familiar with those too much. But Froyo and Gingerbread, I think a lot of people might recognize the name. And then we've kind of moved from Gingerbread to Honeycomb. Ice Cream Sandwich was huge when it came out.
That was massive.
It offered a lot of great advantages to the older versions of the Android operating system. We went from there to Jelly Bean. Kit Kat is as of right now the latest version. We've got a new version.
Lollipop.
Well, Lollipop's
just
coming
launched,
out
the other day.
Oh, that's out now.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I think they updated on the Nexus 6, the Nexus 5. Well, obviously all the Nexuses.
Yeah.
They all got it. I don't think any other manufacturers got it yet, though.
I'm sure Samsung's coming up. I'll have it before long.
Sure, yeah. Samsung will probably release Lollipop on multiple devices. And, I've heard a lot about Lollipop. Some awesome features coming in. I think the big one that I really wanted to bring up today is the encryption. By default now, your phone is going to be encrypted. I think that is an amazing security feature. There's a big thing going on right now with the FBI and how they want, all these manufacturers to give them a back door into these encryptions on people's phones. So if they seize your phone, they could get into it. But if it's fully encrypted and these manufacturers aren't cooperating with the FBI, they can't get in. It's encrypted, and I think that's an amazing feature, and we need to see more of that with your desktop OSs and everything. Yeah, Lollipop is the latest. Nate, what's your take on Android?
I'm a huge fan of Android. Android is open source, which means that anyone can develop an app for it, which is both a pro and a con. The reason why that's really nice is in their Google Play market, you're going to see a lot of free games, a lot of free utilities and things like that. You're going to see people creating their own custom builds of the Android operating system,
right?
Which can also be a good or a bad thing depending on who's doing that for you. Now, the reason why I say that might be a bad thing, if you've got just anybody making an app or a distribution of Android, you have the potential of them putting in a lot of viruses, malware, trackers, things of that nature. And we see that an awful lot in the Google Play market. And really, one of the biggest culprits of that is the Flashlight app. And I believe the top 10 Flashlight apps all send your data to some other server somewhere. And when I mean your data, I mean your pictures, your photo, your music. Well, probably not so much your music, but your videos, your credit card information, anything, all of your saved passwords that are stored in your phone.
Yeah.
They take that information and they keep it for themselves.
Yeah, and that's just not right.
It's terrifying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the big thing when it comes down to Android is, it is open source. Anyone can create an APK for it. But it's terrifying because you don't know what they're going to do with it. Now, that being said, Google is really good about filtering a lot of these out of the App Store. You don't see a ton of those in there. If you're going on a website, Johnny's AndroidApps.com, and you're sideloading them onto your phone, well, then you're going to be in trouble. You
Right.
know, most likely something's going to happen that you didn't want. But, you know, if you just stick to the App Store, I would say it's pretty secure. You know, you just have to know what you're downloading.
Yeah, and when it comes to downloading an app, you have to recognize they show you before you download what permissions that app's asking for. If you're downloading a flashlight app and it's asking for things like your access to your photos, access to your videos, why would a flashlight app need those things?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And one of the best things about Android is when you go to install some of these programs, you will see the permissions list. It'll say, you know, such and such app wants access to your contacts and your camera, your microphone. What the downfall is, you can't disable them because it would probably wreck the app.
Yeah.
You know, the app probably wouldn't function as it's supposed to. But it will show you what it wants access to.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when it comes to permissions like that, if you find an app that you don't necessarily agree with, simple answer, don't download it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, really watch what you're downloading. But all in all, I would say it's probably one of the most solid sandbox OSs we've seen completely out of anything that's ever been released. You know, it's all Linux based. Obviously, it's a Linux kernel,
Right.
and it's a beautiful OS, and I think it has a lot of potential.
You know, and in my opinion, the difference between Ice Cream Sandwich and Kit Kat, even Jelly Bean and Kit Kat, was pretty obvious. Like we said, this is all built on the Linux kernel. And the way they started sorting your files, the way they gave you more permissions over how you control the phone itself, I think it really began to feel more like almost like a computer in a lot of ways in the newest version.
Yeah.
Now I'm extremely excited to see what Lollipop's going to do.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you just said. You know, I think what they're really looking for is to move this mobile OS onto the desktop, and they want a lot of the features of the desktop onto your mobile device. So a lot of the multitasking, you know, you're looking at the day-to-day stuff, and they want it to be fast and convenient, and it to be solid. You know, they want people to move more towards their mobile devices. It's no longer just a sidekick, a phone, which I think we've all experienced. You know, you no longer talk on the phone. You do everything else on your phone.
Yeah.
And I think it's slowly moving that direction. You know, they want you to be able to go onto your phone, edit your Google Docs, which is amazing, by the way. You know, they want you to check your email, do your day-to-day work stuff on your sidekick, and not have to go back to your desktop like we do nowadays.
Yeah, and now that we are still kind of limited to going back to our desktops or our laptops, you're starting to see more integration between what you do on your phone and what you're seeing on your computer, which is why Google Docs is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you edit a file in one place, you can pick it up somewhere else. You can share that file to someone else, and when they edit it, you can tell what they typed and when they typed it, which is awesome. Especially when it comes to like group projects in college.
Yeah.
You know, you got a friend who's like, "Oh yeah, I edited that file." No, you
Yeah.
didn't. You didn't at all because it's definitely not there.
Exactly.
You know, if you even touched it, you know, oh yeah, you changed a period. Good for you. I know
Great
that's
job.
what you changed. Yeah, you're a slacker.
Right. Great job. That was a comma. You put a period. Nice job, man.
But you're definitely starting to see more integration between your phones and your computers now, which
Yeah.
is good and bad, I think.
Well, we're seeing this weird mix right now. We're still stuck in the 90s computing world of, you know, Windows and Office being the main text editor, and the start button. I mean, we're all addicted to the start button.
Yeah.
You know, but we're finally seeing the next generation of technology move up and try and overthrow, you know, the throne of Windows, of your desktop. You know, you want to talk about Chrome OS, this is a great time. You know, they're really trying to move the Android platform onto a computer, which is what you see with these Chromebooks nowadays that have, I don't want to say low-end hardware, but not, you know, super high-end hardware in them. But they run a really light operating system that is virus-free because it's fully sandboxed. You know, it has some limitations as far as storage and you know, those sorts of things, but it's an internet-based computer. They want you to sync with the Google Docs. You know, you only get about 16 gigs, I believe, like 16 gigs.
Typically.
Yeah, of hard drive space. So they don't want you saving your entire photo library of your kids and everything on it, but they also have other things you can do that you can put them in the cloud and, sync with multiple devices. So right now we're in this middle transition of mobile to desktop, and that's really where I'm excited for Android to go. They're doing a lot of great things. There's a lot of great devices coming out. We just saw the new Nexuses launch, and they are just gorgeous. They are effing gorgeous. So I'm really excited where Android's going. I think they really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, exactly. And as the phone hardware starts to evolve, they're getting much closer to getting desktop processing in these things now. They've already got a series of phones that they're working on now with the i3 processor in them, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You're getting now. You don't really have to choose a laptop. You don't have to carry a laptop with you at all because you can, especially now that Microsoft just made the decision to have, Office free on mobile devices.
Yeah.
If you're in a work situation where you have to use Office because of formatting issues, you can do it. And
Right.
you can do all your other things too. You can break from working on your Office document, take a few selfies real quick, you can jump right back into work,
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They're trying to do x86 phones, which is the processor type. That would be awesome in theory, but yet battery life. I think there's kind of a weird thing we're gonna have to hit going from desktop processors to phone processors. Trying to be a mobile device with a computer processor, there's going to be some glitches they're going to have to work on.
Yeah, well,
There's no
anytime
question.
you step from one technology to another, you almost take a half step backwards in technology.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And you saw that when tablets first came out. I mean, they didn't have anywhere near as much battery life as they did now, and they were humongous. They were thick.
Yeah, they were
Remember
massive.
the original iPad was massive. People were like, "Ooh, I don't want to carry this piece of crap around."
Right.
Now you've got the iPad 2 Air, which is so thin you can almost shave with it.
It's paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. The big thing about having an x86 phone is theoretically you could take your x86 based software and put it on your phone. Just as long as your OS can support it. But we're moving into this weird time where everything is going to talk, but we're just trying to work out the kinks, seeing what fits, and what works, best for end users.
Yeah, and as they start to integrate more of the desktop use, the desktop programs and things like that into the mobile market, I think we're going to see a merge of Android and Google's Chrome OS. I could really see Chrome OS taking over the phone market once you hit laptop processing in your phone.
Yeah, I could see that. Just as long as the phones could keep up as far as like battery and those sort of things. I mean, Android might still be the answer, just as long as it's integrated with Chrome OS nicely.
Yeah,
they
which
might
they
still
could
stick
do.
with Android. But I almost see. I'm predicting the other side is that Chrome OS might actually go more towards the desktop side and actually take over. Overthrow Windows 8, Windows 10. I think they could.
I think
overthrow
that's
that
what they want to
side.
do initially.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But it's Google we're talking about, and they've got the money and the resources to bring that to every market.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And I think they should. What a lot of people don't realize is, a lot of these end users, everyone's so fixated on Windows, and a lot of people don't want to shell out the money for a Mac. I understand that, absolutely. Macs are expensive. And usually Macs aren't even the right answer.
Depends on what you're doing.
Well, yeah, it depends on what you're doing. But, for a day-to-day sort of usage, I think Chromebook is a great answer,
No, it really is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chrome OS for a little bit, because I don't know. In my personal opinion, when I've come across people who have it, they have no idea what it is they're getting themselves into. They
Yeah.
just see a $200 price market, and who doesn't want to spend $200 for a computer? Really, all they are is they're laptop processing versions of a tablet, really,
Yeah.
for now. But everything that you do on it is online. Nothing's really stored locally on your computer, which is amazing because you don't have to worry about viruses whatsoever.
Yeah. 0 viruses. That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
Can you imagine, not having to worry about that sort of security on your computer? That is awesome. And that's really where they're going to kill it if they move it to the,
That's
the
why I
desktop
almost want to
market.
see it moved into the mobile market.
Yeah, they
It's
need
to cure up a lot of the security flaws that you see within Android.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about Chrome, Android, Linux-based systems. I think the big one everyone's waiting for us to talk about is iOS.
Yeah, let's talk iOS for a little bit.
Okay, all right. So, everyone, a lot of people have iPhones.
People get in line to this day
They
to
do.
get the newest iPhone.
They do, and an iPhone is a good phone. It's not. I wouldn't say it's the best phone you could buy, but it depends on what you do with it. Depends on what environment you run it with. If you're a big Apple guy, iTunes, App Store. I mean, if you're into that, an iPhone is a good smartphone.
I really think it depends on, I've for years have kind of been resistant to Apple a little bit.
Okay, that's understandable.
But looking at it objectively, it depends on what you're trying to use your phone for. If you're a guy who just wants a ton of apps, Apple may not be for you. If you're a guy, now when we're talking the iPhone 6, if you're someone who loves doing photos or movies and things like that, that camera, the stabilization and the optimization of their camera on their newest phone is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're talking about taking that camera one step further in their next version, which I don't want to talk about too much because it hasn't even happened yet. The 6 is still too new.
Yeah.
But, it really just comes down to what it is you want your phone to do.
Yeah.
If you're someone who wants you to see every moment of your life, it might be the iPhone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing about the iPhone is it's meant to be simplistic. It's not meant to be complicated. They're really looking at the basic end user, which is the majority of the market. Android's a little bit more complicated, even though it's not that much. It still is.
It's a little overwhelming.
It can,
the way your apps are stored in folders and things like that, rather than just right on
your desktop.
Right on your desktop,
absolutely.
Basically.
So they make it simplistic, which is great. There's a lot of good apps. They have an amazing app store, still the top app store for mobile markets, which is good. And they're really good at filtering out bad applications.
Oh, they've got their
Windows.
app store pretty tied down.
Yeah, it's really tight. It's hard to even get an app into the app store. You have to go through tons of processes just to get it in.
Right.
So, you really do get a really secure phone. You get an easy to use phone with a lot of great features.
Right.
Not everyone needs a 32 megapixel camera on their phone.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. I like taking a lot of selfies of myself personally in video form, which is why I like the 2K filming on the Samsungs, but
I hope you're joking.
I wish I wasn't. But the thing is, the one thing that I really love about the iOS, which I may not have been as interested in before, but the simplicity of it really it really makes it easy for people in that older generation who are that dependent on Windows to get into that mobile market.
Yeah.
Because everything's right in front of you. There's nothing hidden that you need to worry about trying to find.
Yeah.
They're very easy to use, and their operating system is pretty intuitive.
Yeah, it's very intuitive.
It's easy to navigate around. When you're looking at an option, you click on it, the option opens up. You still see your options on the left side, so you don't have to worry about trying to get back to them.
Yeah.
It does make it extremely easy. There are so many old people out there who said they never even want a tablet, and now they're addicted to this technology.
Yeah.
And I think iOS is a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing about having iOS and Android around is these markets need competition. If there was one that dominated, if we were all Android users, there really wouldn't be any incentive for them to build the next biggest, greatest operating system, or vice versa with iOS. So having these two competitors, which both do different things, even though they have some similar features, the big thing is iOS is now moving into Apple Pay, which is huge. Even though Google's had the Google Wallet around for a long time, it really hasn't been developed enough into stores, and no one really supports Google Wallet.
It's not anywhere near secure either.
Yeah, and that's the thing is now we're moving into Apple Pay, and I think it's a great feature to have. If I could eliminate carrying my wallet around because of my phone, because I always have my phone. I don't have an iPhone, but that's a great incentive to get an iPhone because I hate my fucking wallet. You know, so I think they're really starting to get into some awesome features, some continuity features with the Mac, calling from your Mac. Handoff features we saw in their last keynote. I mean, they're doing some great things with iOS.
So, and that handoff feature kind of ties into what I was talking about, where you're seeing, a lot of connectivity between your mobile devices and your laptops, your desktops, things like that.
Yeah.
You can literally be editing a file a lot like Google Docs, but on their version, you can literally hand it straight off and start working immediately.
Yeah,
You
immediately.
you don't have to log into your Google Drive or anything like that to pull that up.
Exactly. Just as long as you have the right hardware and the right environment, absolutely.
Yeah,
That
well,
is a
I mean, a lot of
great
Apple
feature.
people tend to upgrade. They give you enough incentives to upgrade if you've got the money to
Yeah.
do so.
Oh, yeah. And they're doing some great stuff with it. But like I said, if we didn't have iOS or Android and we only had one or the other, we would be really sitting in a lull when it comes down to
Yeah, your
mobile
phone
OSs.
technology just wouldn't go anywhere. And I'm glad that we're talking two companies that have the money and resources to actually help evolve this technology. You've got, Apple and you've got Google. And I'm glad it's those two companies rather than, say Microsoft, for example. They are really trying to get into the market.
They tried.
And they might during their
I don't
their next OS promises an awful lot.
Yeah.
For mobile anyway.
That's another cast.
But I
don't know.
don't see them taking over anytime soon.
No,
They're not offering enough incentive to do so.
I don't.
Especially not, and they have almost admitted that themselves, offering Office for free on the other mobile devices.
They're falling too far behind. That I don't know. I think that's another cast.
Yeah, and I want to touch on what you were saying, having the competition in the field.
Yeah.
You've got two companies that are not going to back down.
No.
Google and Apple refuse to back down.
Yeah.
And you've got, if you look at just on the PC side of things, you had Windows and you've had Apple. Linux, yeah, you've had, but there was such a select. So it's a special kind of person who uses Linux.
Yeah.
They're not listening to this probably.
You never know.
But Microsoft was so sure that Apple wouldn't go anywhere with their technology, and they didn't do much to change over the last few years. Really, I mean, you look at Windows 95 was almost the same as 98. It was almost the same as Millennium. XP was huge.
XP was amazing.
But really, it was just a new
that.
graphical interface. They didn't change a whole lot. I mean, the settings were a lot better, but they didn't do anything extravagant. They didn't really push their technology the way they should have.
Yeah.
If they did, we wouldn't even have this conversation about Android or Apple today.
Yeah,
They could have completely dominated the market.
You're right, and they were so stuck in their 90s ways on the desktops. But we had XP, then we went to Vista, 7, 8. Don't even need to say much about Vista and 8.
Yeah.
But they really stuck in their own mindset, and they were like, we are technology. Everyone's going to buy it. And then all of a sudden Google and Apple came up with, with this new technology of mobile. And I don't think Windows can even compete. I don't think,
but we should almost thank Microsoft for Windows 8 though. And the reason I say that is because their big kick on Windows 8 was integrating laptop and tablets. Yeah. Their biggest feature was let's integrate the laptop world into the tablet. And they did a good job on the Surface when you're talking a full laptop in a tablet size.
You're talking about the Surface Pro, not the RT, right?
I'm talking about the Pro for the second, but I'm saying the Windows operating system, they dreamed pretty big on that one. And it almost immediately after, you're seeing Google and Apple pick up that technology and actually do something with it. So you can almost thank them on that much.
I was going to say, if you're going to mention the RT, which all the OEMs rose up against and said we're no longer supporting the RT.
RT was a failure.
RT is garbage. It was the Vista of tablets, But we'll see. Maybe they're going to pull a full 180 and they could come out of it.
They might.
Putting ads on your desktop.
I'll briefly touch on what their plan is for now. Now that all the phones are kind of moving to the x86, they want to run the same operating system on your phone as you would have on, say, your laptop. The reason that's scary as all hell is because you're talking a Windows operating system that is already flawed with security issues, and now you're throwing it on your phone where you've got your credit cards and your selfies and things like that. It's scary. I don't see them going very far with that
I don't see it, no.
necessarily, but that's just going to give Google and Apple more incentive to do what they do best.
I love how this went from an Android and iOS podcast to Android, Windows, and iOS.
I mean, they're in the market. We could talk about some of the. I mean, those are really the big three. There are other operating systems out there for the mobile market, but I'd rather not even talk about some of the other ones. BlackBerry. Yeah, remember how big they were back in the day?
Let's talk about BlackBerry.
Thank them for flopping because that's where Android really took off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we really summed it up. Great. I think there's both awesome features to both operating systems. and it really just depends on your environment.
Yeah, let's just kind of recap. So Android gives you more flexibility on what it is you want to do. You get a larger selection of free apps, which can be both good and bad.
Yeah.
But you get more control over the operating system on your phone, which means you can manipulate the way it functions.
Yeah.
You don't even have to worry about jailbreaking it an awful lot of times because they're pretty open source as it is. When you talk on the iOS side of things, you get a very simple operating system, very stable operating system in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'd say stable. Stable's a good word for it. Very, very simplistic, easy to use, some great features. Venturing into, I don't want to say new markets, but new markets with support.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of awesome things. So it really just depends on what you do with it.
Yeah, and then we briefly touched on the Chrome OS, which is Google's answer to a laptop. And that's really, I think it's overlooked because a lot of people just see it as a tablet and it's really not.
Yeah, not at all.
They function really well. They have their limitations, but it's Google. I mean, they're not going to back down. They could throw millions of dollars at it every day, and it would, they'd still not flinch.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, I mean, we briefly touched on them. I think the next time we talk about mobile, we should kind of get into the biggest competitors in the actual hardware side of it.
Okay.
And how that functions.
Okay, sounds good.
But I think we did a pretty good job capping that up for you. So thanks for tuning in. This is Nate and
Matt.
And we'll see.